All right, welcome back to another episode of All Automotive. I'm Matt Clausen, your host, and today we're going to be talking about some of the things that you want to look at when you purchase a used vehicle. So there's a lot of things going on when you're purchasing a used vehicle, and one of the things that you want to look at are the vehicle history. So where's this car been? You find your car on any one of a number of places. Let's just say you're using Facebook Marketplace. And you find this car, and the person has a number of different pictures in it. And from there, you can tell from the pictures that if it's got any paint damage, or if it's 10 colors, or it's all the same color, or it's got rust spots or whatever. So all of this you're going to have to take into account before you go and look at it. And a lot of times people will put the vehicle identification number in the ad. And you're going to hear me use the term VIN, V-I-N, the vehicle identification number. And you're going to hear me use that a number of different times throughout this episode. So what you do is if you can get the VIN number, you can go to a vehicle history report website and put this VIN number in, pay a small fee, and it'll tell you if it's had any accidents, any title issues, if it was a rental car, if it was purchased by a owner or something like that. So using an online service like that, you can get a lot of information rather quickly about the vehicle's history. So when you're going to purchase this vehicle, and let's just say that you want to go take a look at it, and you show up and this vehicle is in the driveway and you want to take a look at it. So number two, what's the next thing that you want to take a look at? Well, visually, you want to look at it from the outside and see if there's any, obvious signs that it's been in an accident, if there's any kind of overspray. And what I mean by that is if there's any paint damage or paint that has been sprayed and not been taped off in a certain area. So let's look in between the two panels, let's say between the front fender and the door. There's a molding on the door, and the person who painted it didn't get the tape quite as close as they could have to the molding, and you can kind of see maybe the former color of that door or a line, and you can see maybe some paint got on that molding. They didn't tape up the molding very well, and there's overspray on that molding. So that's, there's some red flags that you want to start putting in your mind as you're walking around taking a look at this car. So visually looking at the paint, sometimes you can, if it's in the summertime and you got your sunglasses on and they're polarized or whatever, a lot of times the difference in the paint will show up in your sunglasses, and you can see the difference in the color of paint, especially deep paints like red is a very difficult one to match, number one, but it will show a difference in your sunglasses. That's one thing that, hey, they don't need to know that you're looking at that, but you can look at that and tell that, hey, maybe it's been painted. And of course, if you run your vehicle history report and you're okay with maybe a fender bender or it was in a small accident, and if it was repaired at a reputable body shop, then it should be in the same condition it was before it was in the accident. But things that you want to look for on the vehicle history report are things like salvage titles, branded titles, things of that nature, or if it was in a flood to where the vehicle was purchased by the insurance company, that kind of stuff will show up on the vehicle history report. So back to where we were at the car and we're taking a look at it, and we noticed some rust along the lower edge. And hey, I live in Michigan, and I've told you that before, and we have winters and they salt the roads around here. So there is an opportunity for a 5 to 10-year-old vehicle to start getting rusty. You want to take a closer look at that stuff, and don't be afraid to get down on the ground and take a look and see how bad it is. If it's something that where you can grab it with your hand and pieces of metal and rust fall off in your hand, that might be concerning for me, and it should be concerning for you, because you don't want to spend your hard-earned money on a vehicle that is rusted out or has some sort of issue. Now, most vehicles today are built without a frame and are unibody cars. And what I mean by that is they use the body as the structure of the car, and a part of that structure of the car is underneath the doors in between the two wheels. So you want to bend down, stick your head under there, take a closer look, see if it's something that can be repaired rather easily, or is there holes, or can you stick your hand up in there? If the vehicle is around 10 years old, I know in the Rust Belt states, and I say Rust Belt states that salt the roads in the wintertime. Michigan is one of those, and that's where I live. So the opportunity for that to start rusting is evident. It shows up rather quickly in a couple of years if it's not taken care of. So if you're down on your knees and underneath there and you take a look and there's pieces of the metal falling off in your hand, then that's obviously a concerning thing. And you might be a vehicle that you'd want to pass by. But again, let's say you're okay with a little bit of rust and it's a car that you're looking for, to procure rather inexpensively, then, there's some things there that you might want to use as a bargaining tool or a negotiating tool when you're talking to that person about the purchase price of the car. So the rust and the paint damage can be rather extensive on some vehicles. So you want to take a look and make sure that, if you're okay with a little bit of rust and it's something that you could take to your body shop or a place that you do business with, and they can take care of that rather quickly. Take the rust, sand it down and prep it right and paint that and take care of it. So now that we're looking at the unibodies, and most front wheel drive cars are unibody cars, we want to make sure that the back end is okay too, because we don't want to be in a rear end collision and have the car fold up behind us and have the rear passengers in danger of getting hurt if the vehicle doesn't have enough structural metal there and the rust and deterioration is there. So again, walk around the back, stick your head under there, take a look and see. And don't be afraid to bring a flashlight and take a look. Have a little pen light or a full-size flashlight. Take a look. The rust, it shows up. Things will flake off and start falling down, and it's going to show up rather evident if it's pretty rusty under there, because they can make a lot of cars look really good from the outside, but underneath it's not so good. So with the rust and so forth on the unibodies, when we're talking about trucks or full-size sport utilities, most of those vehicles use a full frame. Like back in the 70s and 80s in the rear-wheel drive cars, our parents drove them, and we rode in the back, and we were never in danger of anything because those vehicles were built very solidly. However, don't have the safety features that they do in the vehicles today. But again, there are certain places that they rust too. So these frames are a enclosed square, so you can look along the sides. And I caution all my listeners and followers to do this, is to look underneath just like you would on a front wheel drive car. Is, again, just take your flashlight, take a look down the side. Are there any obvious signs of rust peeling or paint peeling off of the frame? There's tubes that connect the frame sections together, and most of those are visible from the wheel well, especially the Chevrolet trucks and the Ford trucks. There are tubes that connect the frame together, and water and rust and stuff can sit up in there, and over the course of 10 or 15 years, it creates havoc, and it will just start to rust. There's just no way around it. So again, that's something that you want to take a look at. If you're looking at a vehicle that's from down south and it's from North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Arizona, you name it, in the states that don't have snow and salt the roads, the majority of the time, rusty frames and rusty unibodies aren't really going to be an issue. So with full-size trucks and sport utilities, the frame is something that you want to take a look at too. So a couple of things that I did touch on in one of my other episodes was, under the hood. What's under the hood look like? That's one of the things we wanted to check before winter, right? One of the things I told you last time. So we lifted the hood. We're taking a look at things. Is it really dirty under there? Does the previous owner of this vehicle actually open the hood and spray it down the garden hose and get some of the dirt and so forth off there? I know it's all out in the open and it's very difficult to keep the underside of your hood clean, but has an effort been made at all? Maybe. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the under the hood. under the hood fluids. And like we did on our winter inspection, we want to go from the driver's side around to the right-hand side. And as we go around, let's take a look at those fluids. Is the brake fluid full? I don't recommend taking the cap off. Like I said the last time, it's usually visible through the reservoir so that you can see the fluid. Check that, make sure that that's good. It's not low. Low presents an issue. If low means either the brake pads are getting low and need to be serviced, or it definitely has a brake fluid leak. So moving along, most of the time you're going to come across the battery on the left side. You want to look and make sure there's no corrosion, no blue stuff, no foamy looking garbage that's on top of I say garbage, that's funny. It really does. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen something corrode like a battery, but it looks like blue foamy crust that forms on each post, the positive and the negative post. Most of the time it happens on the positive post because that's where all the energy's coming from. Or if the battery actually leaks acid, it'll come out wherever it decides to leak from. And normally it's out one of those posts. So that will tell you that maybe that battery needs to be serviced, and that obviously needs to be cleaned off. So the thing we want to use to clean that off, if you're okay with it, and it's something that you're comfortable with, is once you purchase the vehicle, you can mix some baking soda and water. And this is the opposite of an acid. It's a base. So you mix this up in water, the baking soda, and then you pour that on top of there. And that will take off all that corrosion all over those terminals. So we've addressed the brake fluid and the battery. Be sure to watch out for the battery. And if it's something that the battery, the person you're purchasing the vehicle from says the battery's been replaced, and you want to, if you can take a look at it, a lot of times there's a sticker on that battery that will have a letter and a number. So if you can use your fingers to count the months and use A is January and B is February and so on till you get to December. And then the digit will be the last digit of the year. So if it's a B0, then it was February of 2020 that battery was replaced, so that you know that battery is almost 2 years old. And a lot of times those stickers are placed in different areas. And sometimes you can see the battery, and a lot of times the battery's covered up and it's back underneath the cowl. I know Ford Escapes are way in the back and it's hard to get to those. Again, most of the time the battery is in the left front corner or in that left front area. So you want to look for any kind of corrosion, what may be stamped on the battery as far as a year and the sticker. And you want to maybe ask that owner, how long ago has this been replaced? Because it's January and yesterday it was 9 degrees and we want this thing to start when we get it and give it to our daughter to drive to school. So some of the things you want to look at on that battery are those things there. So let's move along. Let's go around to the outside, and we're moving right along. And a lot of the cars, again, like the last episode, if you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to it, is the power steering. Let's take a look and try to find where the power steering's at. If it's a hydraulic power steering system, it's going to have fluid. If it's not a hydraulic power steering system, it's going to be electric, and you're not going to have to worry about any kind of fluid or any kind of maintenance there. Chevy trucks, Ford Fusions, a lot of the GM midsize cars are electric steering. A lot of them are going away from the hydraulic steering to save fuel mileage and to save demand on the engine to get better mileage, to be more efficient as they drive down the road. However, there's more electrical stuff that has the opportunity to fail, and these things need to be replaced if they do fail. So let's look for the power steering fluid. Again, it's a little cap. It's probably got a little dipstick on it. You twist it off, pull it up. It's got fluid in there. That's great. Okay, good. Normally, that's not a fluid that really gets changed very often. It's something that we can change if we wanted to. It's recommended that it be changed every 50,000 miles. It is a hydraulic fluid, and it goes circulated through there round and round and round as the engine runs. That fluid is circulating and doing its job. So we want to check and make sure that fluid is full and that there's no craziness going on in that. Now we're looking for maybe the radiator fluid or for an overflow tank. Maybe there's antifreeze or coolant. We want to make sure that is full and operational. If the vehicle has not been warmed up or started or ran, we want to make sure that we do not remove that radiator cap if this vehicle has run. There is pressure in that system, and that radiator coolant antifreeze will be very hot. Most systems run at over 200 degrees, and that's not something that you want to get on your skin in the event that you open that and that decides to burp out at you. So make sure the vehicle is cold, and then you can remove that cap and take a look at that. So now that we've got the coolant and we've looked at the power steering fluid, we've looked at the battery, we've got the brake fluid, let's pull the dipstick on the oil. Let's look and see how well this person's maintained this vehicle. If it's black and, I say looks like the bottom of your shoe, if you have a dark soled shoe, then that maybe it's time to get it changed. And we want to, there's another thing. When we look in the inside of the vehicle, we're all service centers are putting up window stickers to remind you to when to come in next time, right? So we want to look for that sticker too. But we'll get to that when we get to the interior part. So we pull the oil dipstick. If it looks nice and tan looking and you can see the indicator on it that tells you the little hash mark that tells you if it's full or empty. And if it's best to check it when it's not running and off. So we pull this dipstick out and we wipe it off, and we got our little rag, pull the dipstick out, oil's full, looks a little dark, might just need an oil change. We don't know. We haven't got to that sticker to take a look at to see if it's actually due or overdue. So one of the things that you really don't want to neglect is the engine oil. So if it does have a transmission dipstick and we can access that, let's start the vehicle and let it idle. And then we want to pull that dipstick out, wipe it off, push it back down in there, and then pull it back out and see what it reads. It's going to have a cold mark and a hot mark, something that if it's on the cold mark, it's full. If it's warmed up and been driven, then you want to check and make sure that it's full and then the hot range. A lot of times the transmissions are a sealed unit and they don't really need to have fluid added to them unless they're leaking. So if that fluid's low, that might be a concern of mine if that transmission may have a leak or something of that nature. So again, under the hood, let's look and see what's going on. And I don't know if we can get to anything else. A lot of times the air filters have screws that hold them down, and it's not something that's easily removed. Some of them have clips, and that's a question that you can ask the owner is how long ago has the air filter been changed. But again, it's not a deal breaker. It's something that's, less than $50. $50 are the high end ones, or ones in certain vehicles of certain nameplates have a higher dollar amount when it comes to air filters. But, for the most part, they're $15, $20, $30 at the most. So it's not a deal breaker for a used car if the air filter is dirty. Just like the oil change, we can go get that done and shore all that stuff up. But keep this stuff in mind when you're talking to that particular person about how much I'm going to pay for your used vehicle. So now that we got under the hood, we've walked around the car. And if you listen to my last episode about winter car preparation, or what things to look at when getting your car ready for winter, is the tires. This is something that's all year long. And I said this in the last episode that it's something that you want to check periodically to see, what the tread depth is. So you take a penny, and if you look at the front, it's Abe Lincoln's on the front. So the distance from the top of his head to the outside of that coin is 230 seconds. And how we measure tires across the industry, in the automotive industry, is in 30 seconds. So your tire starts off most of the time at 10 to 11, 30 seconds of tread depth, depending on the manufacturer and depending on where you get it from. It varies, but for the most part, you're going to be around 9 to 11, 30 seconds when they're brand new. So if you stick this penny in there and you can see the top of Abe Lincoln's head, then it needs tires. And I would say if you can barely, if it's not going way down in there, then, you lose wet traction at 430 seconds. And the tire wear bars are 230 seconds. So across that tire, there's some wear indicators that tell us as auto technicians that this tire needs to be replaced. So most of our safety inspections that we do for our customers, we recommend tires anywhere from 430 seconds down and below. That presents a safety issue for you, your family, or anybody that drives that car in the summer, the winter, the fall, the rain. If the tires do not have enough tread, you are either going to be surfing in the rain or you're going to be sliding around in the winter. So it's something you really want to take a look at. And again, this is just adding to the list of the things that we're dealing with when we want to negotiate the price of this car. So if the tread depth is great, you walk around, let's make sure that they're all the same kind of tire. So let's just use one for an example. We'll use Goodyear. So if you go around the car and they're all Goodyears, that's a good indication that all four of them got changed at the same time. Now we have certain instances where, customers run over things in the road and we have to change one tire. And if they're in a hurry or we don't have the ability to match that tire, or it's something that happens, they're on vacation or whatever, they just need to get back to where they need to go. So keep that in mind. A mismatched tire could make the car not drive straight going down the road. And we've seen that happen in several different instances, that if you don't have the right tire or the same tires on it, it could cause a pull or a vibration. So tire condition, let's take a look at them. We can not see the top of Abe's head. We're probably doing pretty good, but we still want to make sure that it sinks down in there quite a ways. And that's the tread depth. And again, that the penny that's in your pocket. So the distance from the top of Abe Lincoln's head to the edge of the coin is 2/32. So if you can put that in there and you can see the top of his head, or it doesn't go down very far in the middle of the tread, then you need tires. So the next thing we want to take a look at is let's move on to the interior of the car. And this is a big one for me, and should be for a lot of people as well. Keeping the interior of your vehicle in a cleaner state is helpful for the overall condition of the car, the overall resale of the car, and it helps your technicians repair your car better because we're not moving trash and so forth around to do our job. And it just makes it a nicer vehicle to try and resell. So let's take a look at, so we open the driver's door. We look at the driver's door panel. Let's look at the driver's window switch. Let's see if there's any kind of wear on that switch, like they're putting the window up and down a lot, or is the person leaning on the door? Is there an indentation in the door handle or the armrest that's on that door from that person's elbow? Let's take a look at the brake pedal. Now, a brake pedal is a very good indicator of how often the person is on the brakes. So if the little rubber pad is worn off and you can see the metal of the actual rod of the pedal, then this person is in and out of this car a lot and has used this vehicle a lot. And it's probably got a lot of miles on it. So that's the other thing we want to look at. And then look at the condition of the driver's floor. Most people are going to be trying to make their car look the best so they can get the most money out of it. So it's going to be cleaned out, but you want to pull that mat up to see if their heel of their shoe has worn through the previous floor mat that may have been in there and is worn into the carpet. So that's another indication that the vehicle was driven a lot and so forth. And then look at the condition of the seat. If you're in and out of that vehicle quite a bit and you're a delivery driver and you've drove it around and you do one of the delivery app services, or you're a outside taxi service or whatever, for one of the outside taxi services, we won't name them, but we all know who they are. You can use an app on your phone and then they come pick you up. So, if they're in and out of this vehicle quite a bit, or if they're in it a lot and driving a lot, then, your feet are in the same spot. Your heel's going to, your shoe's going to wear on the floor. And, let's take a look at those kinds of things to see how much wear and tear the interior's had on this vehicle. And then we could make an informed decision on, maybe this car is really not for me. A lot of times I will take a look at the steering wheel too, because if the steering wheel is smooth and the leather, if it's a leather wrapped steering wheel and it's really smooth, it's an indication that the car's been driven a lot. But let's say all this stuff is good and everything's looking good. The carpet looks good. The seats are good. It smells nice in there. We want to take a look at the radio buttons, the heater controls. We want to make sure the radio turns on and works and is operational. because a lot of these electronics, they're not inexpensive to replace. And if they don't work, then that's something that you're going to have to get working so that you can enjoy driving this car. So we want to make sure that the heat works, the blower works, it changes modes from defrost to vent to floor. And then, like I say, with the radio too, we want to make sure the clock and the display illuminate. When we turn on the lights, do the lights come on in there so that we can see them at night? So looking at these things, making sure that they work, it's helpful because the radio, the heater control, heating and air conditioning issues aren't really the least expensive thing to fix on your car. And if it's broken when you're looking at it, then that, those things may be a deal breaker. If the radio doesn't work and it's a GM car, some of those are really expensive. And they're not just radios anymore. It's the old infotainment systems where it has touch screens, and it's like an iPad to where you're touching things and getting to different screens, and the Uconnect with the Dodge and so forth. Those things aren't cheap to replace. So you want to make sure that it changes modes and does all the stuff just like you would do if you were at the new car dealership. You can do that when you're sitting there taking a look at this thing. So if all of these things are good and you think you're wanting to take this thing for a test drive, that's a very good idea. And if the owner of the vehicle is okay with letting you leave your car there and take the car that you're looking at for a ride, great. That's great. So we start it up, make sure everything works right. There's no abnormal noises. Nothing sounds weird. It goes into gear okay. And then we take off down the road. One of the things that we want to look at is, are there any warning lights on? Is there any warning lights on? ABS light, traction control light, traction off light. There is a lightning bolt light on Dodges, which indicate an issue with the throttle body. Is the service engine soon or check engine light on? And it looks like a little engine and it's yellow. A lot of times, if there's an issue with the emission system or the drivability of the vehicle, the check engine light comes on 150 different reasons. Like I say a lot of times to my customers, we don't know what it is until we put the scan tool on it and it tells us what code's in there, and then we can go from there. So everything goes good. It goes into gear. You're taking off. You want to go down the road. Put the car through its paces. Step on the gas. Do a hard acceleration. Get it going. If it's a country road and you can do that, by all means, do it. It's something that if it doesn't accelerate right or doesn't run right, or that right away. And then do a nice controlled stop from 50 miles an hour, let's say. Do it from a comfortable speed, whatever the speed limit is, 35 miles an hour. Make sure there's nobody behind you, or if you got to go onto a side street where there's not a lot of traffic, that would be a good idea. Make sure the brakes don't shake when you put them on. If it shakes and shudders the vehicle, then there's an issue with either rust or you've got excessive run out on one of the rotors, or the brakes need to be repaired. So that's something that you want to take a look at as well. So on this test drive, you make sure that it accelerates good, the brakes work good, turn on the lights. Do all the lights operate? Do the turn signals work okay? Is one of them flashing really fast? That would be an indication that one of the light bulbs is burned out and it would need to be repaired. Turn on the headlights, turn on the brights, turn on the wipers. Make sure all this stuff works, because you don't want to leave and purchase the vehicle and then, it wasn't raining that day, so I didn't turn the wipers on. Something that you want to check. And if any of this stuff is not what you're up to, or anything that you don't feel comfortable with, or you finally find, you test drive it and you're happy with it, and you want to say, you give me a call and you say, hey, Matt, I got this used car I want to buy, and I want you guys to take a look at it. Great. We charge a small amount to do our safety inspection on it. And then there's some things that we can see, and there's some things that we know based on what the vehicle is, if it has a history of that issue, or if it has history of transmission troubles, or in our experience, we've seen this with this vehicle, or we've seen wheel bearing problems with this vehicle, or this vehicle has issues with the brakes, or this, there's things that we know about the vehicles because we work on them all the time that you might not know if you went to look at this vehicle. So by all means, give us a call. We're happy to take a look at the car for you. If you don't feel like you want to do any of the stuff that I just talked about in the last half hour, then give us a call. We're happy to do that. We've got a complete safety inspection, you'd really rather want to know if the vehicle was rotted out before you purchased it than after the fact. And then you try to, salvage whatever money you had to purchase to get that vehicle when the vehicle is not even safe to be driven. So again, just give us a call. Let us know you want to have the vehicle inspected. Most of the time, the people, I say customers, most of the time, the people that own the vehicle that want to sell it are okay with it. If they're not okay with it, that's a red flag. If they don't want to let you test drive it, that's a red flag. So there's something going on to where they don't want you to drive it. If you can't just take it down the street and back and at least feel the way it drives and inspect it in that regards, then maybe it's something that you want to take a look at from a different place. And these are all things that you can do if it's on a used car lot as well. I would recommend doing this as well too. If it's an independent used car lot and they don't have a repair facility attached to it, then I would really recommend that you take that thing somewhere and have it inspected. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of All Automotive. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. Thanks for listening. This has been the what to look for when purchasing a used vehicle. Let's go through what I talked about. Get a vehicle history report. They're out there. Let's do it. Get the VIN number, put it in there. Check out the rust or the paint. Has it been painted? The frame issue. If it's a truck, take a look at that. Is it rusty? Under the hood, let's look at the fluids. Check the oil. The tire condition. Can you see Abe Lincoln's head? I hope not. And the interior electronics, the upholstery. Does the radio work? Does the heater work? Take the thing for a test drive. Make sure it runs good. Make sure the brakes work good. Make sure it turns. It doesn't pull. And take it to us if you need a mechanical inspection. This has been Matt Clausen. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of All Automotive.